When Lin Enterprise encountered a crisis, I chose to become his girlfriend. With high hopes, I wanted to help him through tough times and embrace a brighter future together. Throughout our 3-year relationship, I consistently supported him, using my connections and resources to help his company overcome difficulties. I invested a lot of effort, only wishing for his success and our happiness. Finally, when the company was back on track, he proposed to me, promising to bring me happiness for a lifetime. At that moment, I felt like the happiest woman in the world, believing that our love had finally come to fruition. However, I accidentally discovered his chat history with a friend, and those words cut into my heart like a sharp blade. It turned out that he married Alice Su to take advantage of her resources. The company's growth was about to accelerate, and I was sure that Sarah Sher would not stand by and watch me marry this woman. If Sarah were willing to come back to me, I would immediately divorce Alice and choose to be with her. Seeing this, I felt a heaviness in my heart and decisively decided to end this relationship. Mom, please withdraw from the partnership with Lin Enterprise in a few days. The company is at a critical point right now, and if you pull out your investment, it will have a significant impact on him. Did that guy make you feel wronged? Mom is here to help you vent. My mom has always spoiled me. When she found out about my mishap, she was furious and wanted to confront him. I forced a bitter smile, tears welling up in my eyes. Mom, I'll handle this myself. My voice cracked, and in order to avoid worrying her, I quickly ended the call. Then, I focused intently on the painful chat history on my tablet screen. He is my senior. When I was a freshman, I encountered difficulties in the library, and he helped me solve the problem. Because of this, I developed a deep admiration for him. During my time in college, I actively pursued him for a long time, but he never gave me a clear response. Looking back now, I feel quite foolish. His ambivalence makes me want to get closer to him even more. I find men like him charming. After graduation, his company faced difficulties. With my support and companionship, the situation gradually improved. Eventually, he agreed to be my boyfriend. I asked my mom to use her connections to fully support him and help revive his company. 3 years later, the company Yinglai La Shinda Jiyer. He proposed to me at that time. I thought we could finally be together, but little did I know that it was all just a way for him to provoke his first love. I was nothing but a pawn in his game. On the day of our wedding, I was afraid I would become the laughingstock of everyone. Today he went out for a social event in a hurry, and actually forgot to delete the chat history on his tablet. Even though that chat history makes my heart ache, I couldn't help but check his photo album, as I had never seen it before. He seems to never share anything on social media. Even when we travel together, he doesn't post any photos of us. However, when I opened his album, I discovered that he had saved many pictures. Soon I came across a photo of a girl. Although only half of her face was visible, the earrings were particularly striking. I had seen them in his bag before and thought he had finally understood romance, preparing to give them to me on our wedding day. To my surprise, the earrings were given to another woman. It turned out he really did understand romance, but for me there was no romance in this situation at all. Just then my phone rang. Alice, come quickly. Michael Lin is fighting with someone. Michael's angry voice came through the phone. He was shouting, you all have to apologize to my girlfriend. My heart sank suddenly. I am not by his side, so the girlfriend he mentioned definitely isn't me. I want to know what happened tonight, so I hurriedly put on my coat and went to the shoe cabinet, only to find the shoes I gave him lying quietly on the floor. Upon closer inspection, there are noticeable signs of wear on them. These are the shoes I carefully selected and spent a lot of time choosing for him, yet he doesn't seem to cherish them at all. I picked up the shoes and coldly threw them into the trash can. Then I called a car and hurried to the restaurant where Michael was fighting. When I arrived, I saw Michael holding a poor woman who was wearing a pair of sparkling earrings. A few people had accidentally spilled soup on Michael's friend, which led to a conflict between Michael and them. Michael had drunk quite a bit today, and I was a bit worried that he would get into trouble. Michael's friend rushed over, anxiously explaining the situation to me. Upon learning the reason, I couldn't help but smile wryly. It reminded me of the time I accompanied him to a gathering, where someone was quite rude to me over trivial matters. I had never seen him so angry before. Instead, he blamed me for being inconsiderate, believing that I was the one who had made the atmosphere awkward. Michael wanted to go up and hit someone again, but his friend quickly rushed over to stop him. "Michael, calm down. You're about to get married, don't stir up trouble." Michael pushed his friend away. "Who's getting married? This guy splattered soup all over my girlfriend. This can't just be brushed off. If he doesn't apologize, no one is leaving." Michael, feeling dazed from the drinks, stumbled as he walked, drawing the awkward attention of our friends. Everyone turned to look at me. I let out a cold laugh, then stepped forward and slapped the man who was confronting Michael. Instantly, the scene fell silent. After a brief moment, the other party charged at me in anger. I wanted to see Michael's reaction. Would he, as he had done in the past, stand in front of me without hesitation and confront the aggressor? However, to my surprise, Michael suddenly pushed me aside and angrily said, "What are you doing here? Isn't today chaotic enough already? You only make things worse." His words left me feeling completely disheartened. He looked at the other person with confidence and continued, "Now we're even. Just hurry up and leave." The other party wisely chose not to continue arguing and eventually left in frustration. After they left, Michael slumped heavily into the chair. His friend awkwardly explained to me, "Alice, don't think too much about it. Michael was just drunk. That's why he said such things." That was Sarah, Michael's high school classmate, who had just returned from abroad today. I looked at Sarah, and I noticed that there were still tears in the corners of her eyes, making her look quite wronged. Sarah is Michael's fiancée, but before the introduction was even finished, Michael suddenly stood up from his chair. "Kali, what fiancé?" That sentence sent a shock through me. The atmosphere in the room instantly turned awkward. After a long moment of silence, Michael's friend quickly tried to ease the tension by handing me a drink. "Sister-in-law, I'll toast to you." To my surprise, Michael, who had just slumped down, sat up again and glared angrily at his friend, saying sternly, "Don't you know that your sister-in-law is allergic to that kind of drink?" It was true that I was allergic to that drink and he was aware of it. What surprised me was Sarah's reaction. "Michael, you've had too much to drink. Xiao Wang is toasting to Alice, not to me." Only then did Michael realize, oh well, she can really drink. She's the best at it in the whole company. Hearing this, I felt a heaviness in my heart, as if something had shattered. A few years ago at a gathering, I had already told him that I was allergic to this kind of drink, but when we got there, he still made me drink it. That day, I wasn't feeling well, but he called me pretentious, saying I was overreacting to just a drink. Even after experiencing such a lesson, he still didn't remember my allergies. It was clear that he never really cared about me. I had initially held a glimmer of hope upon coming here, but now it has been completely shattered. Sarah stood up and said to me, "Since you're here, why don't you take Michael back with you? I just returned to the country and can't take care of him tonight. By the way, remember to make him a cup of honey water after he wakes up tomorrow. He really enjoys it. If he doesn't have it, he won't have any energy throughout the day. Don't forget to cover him with a blanket at night. He tends to sleep poorly if he drinks too much." Her words made me feel like she understood Michael better than I did. Today they just handed this mess over to me. I stared at Sarah's innocent eyes and felt an overwhelming urge to slap her, but in the end I held myself back. I wanted to see how long they would continue with this charade. On the way home I couldn't help but shed tears. After 3 years of being in love and counting the 2 years I spent pursuing him, I have loved him for a total of 5 years. However, the outcome was like this. It reminded me of a conversation I had seen before. He had said that as long as Sarah was willing to come back from abroad, he would break up with me and be with her. Today he finally achieved his goal. No wonder he was in such a hurry to leave in the afternoon. He must have gone to the airport to pick her up. At that moment, Michael's phone vibrated. I took a look and saw a message from Sarah. However, my attention was drawn to Sarah's profile picture. They had actually swapped to a couple's avatar, probably doing it during the party just now. Last year, I hired a photographer to take a beautiful set of photos of Michael and me. I was excited about using one of those as my profile picture, but Michael criticized me for being immature and suggested I focus on work instead. Yet now, he has changed to an even more childish avatar with Sarah. At that moment, I noticed a small box in Michael's suit pocket. I carefully took it out. When I saw the logo of that well-known brand, my breath quickened involuntarily, and my hands began to tremble noticeably. The lack of oxygen made me feel lightheaded, but I still summoned the courage to open the box. Inside there was indeed a necklace. The back is engraved with 2 letters which are Sarah's name. I had asked him many times if he could give me this necklace when we got married, but he always refused. He thought it was just a waste of money. He had been waiting for Sarah, wanting to engrave her name on this important necklace. In order not to disturb Michael, who was sound asleep, I made an effort to wipe away the tears from the corners of my eyes, and then used his fingerprint to unlock the message sent by Sarah. "Dear, don't forget to help me choose a ring tomorrow." Seeing this message, my mind buzzed with thoughts. I had brought up the topic of the ring many times, but he always used work as an excuse to make me choose it myself. He didn't care at all about what I picked because in his eyes it was impossible for me to wear that ring. In that moment, I really wanted to cry my heart out. But seeing the driver still sitting in the front seat, I could only dig my nails into my thigh, desperately holding back my tears as the pain etched into my flesh. I could only use the physical pain to substitute for the heartache. I struggled to let go of this love that I had clung to for 5 years. The next morning, just as Sarah suggested, I made him some honey water. To my surprise, he took a sip and then spat it out, asking me what I had mixed it with. "Why is it so sweet? You know, I really dislike sweet drinks." However, I remember Sarah saying that he loves the taste of honey water the most. Soon I understood. He doesn't actually like the taste of honey water, he likes the taste of Sarah. I like the taste of first love. I didn't sleep at all last night and cleared my thoughts on many things. When I saw him like this, surprisingly, I wasn't angry. Instead, I just poured the whole cup of honey water into the trash can. After putting on his shoes, Michael coldly said, "The company is very busy, and I have a lot to deal with. Please stop causing me trouble." With that, he turned around and slammed the door behind him. I know he went to accompany Sarah to choose a ring. I had someone quickly find out which store Sarah was at. Sure enough, Michael chose the most expensive jewelry store in the city, the same place I had visited a few times before. 3 days ago, I ordered the most expensive ring in the country from here. Today should be the day the ring arrives in the store. When I arrived at the jewelry store, I saw Sarah displaying a ring in front of Michael. Michael was discussing something with the salesperson. Sarah, being charming, was holding onto Michael's arm, saying, "Michael, I really love this ring and I want this one." Meanwhile, Michael was trying hard to communicate with the salesperson. "Call that lady and let her know that I can offer an additional 50,000 and also compensate her with another 50,000, as long as she is willing to let go of the ring for me." Hearing this, I couldn't help but smile bitterly. It turned out that he was so generous for the ideal person he had in mind. The store clerk was clearly attracted by the price offered by Michael, and turned to make a call to contact me. I gradually walked up behind Michael. Sarah saw me first, her face immediately turning pale, and then she nudged Michael, showing a pitiful expression. Michael turned around and, seeing me, instinctively furrowed his brows. He immediately questioned, "With so many things going on at the company, what are you doing here instead of being there?" I quietly looked at him, not wanting to argue. Last night, I had cried for him until my tears ran dry. It really wasn't worth it to be upset about him again. Seeing me silent, Michael pinched his nose and finally spoke up. "Alice, you know that I truly love Sarah. Stop making a fuss. I'll give you some money, and I hope you can leave with dignity." I stared into his eyes, and one question lingered in my mind. "Michael, have you ever really loved me over the years?" After hearing that, a trace of disdainful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. "Alice, I know you love deeply. But today, in front of Sarah, I have to honestly tell you that I have never truly loved you. I just felt sorry for you, chasing after me for so many years, which is why I agreed to be with you." Although this was the answer I had anticipated, Michael's words were even more resolute than I had imagined. "It's fine, since he can be so heartless. Then why can't I?" At that moment, the store clerk returned after making a call. "Mr. Lin, I'm sorry." She looked surprised when she saw me. "Miss Sue, I didn't expect to see you here." "This gentleman." I interrupted her and said, "It's okay, just give the ring to this young lady. I hope they can be happy." I left the jewelry store and called my mom. "Mom, let's tell him about the investment on Michael's wedding day. It's time to end everything with Michael." even though 5 years of feelings make it hard for me to let go. These 5 years may be the most precious time of my life, shaping my entire youth. Now, I must take responsibility for my own blindness and naivety. Selfless devotion often comes with a heavy price, but I need to move past all of this and start my life anew. After leaving the jewelry store, I returned to the company. As soon as I walked in, I heard my colleagues discussing something. Some people say that the bride Mr. Lin is going to marry this time is not Alice, but a girl named Sarah. It is said that Sarah is Mr. Lin's first love, someone he has liked for many years. Manager Lee just showed us her photo, and she is indeed much more beautiful than Alice. The difference is quite significant. If I were Mr. Lin, I would also choose Sarah. Alice really pales in comparison to Sarah. Usually, I viewed Alice as the boss lady, but I never expected she was just a backup for Mr. Lin. These words struck me like a sharp knife. I tried my best to act as if I hadn't heard anything and walked straight into the office, packing my belongings into a cardboard box one item at a time. I understood the principle of how relationships fade when people leave. These employees used to call me Sister Alice, but now that they knew Michael was not marrying me, they immediately became distant. That's truly human nature. Just as I was organizing my things, Michael suddenly stormed in, pointing at me and accusing me, asking what was going on with the order from Mr. Wang. Why did Mr. Wang suddenly decide not to collaborate with us? Did you do something behind the scenes? Do you have any idea how much I have sacrificed for the company over the years? Alice, feelings and work are two different matters. If you seek revenge on my company because of your emotions, I will not let you off the hook. Over the years, I've been the one driving many projects behind the scenes. I suspect my mother has already started urging some partners to pull their collaborations with the company. Yet he thinks that today's achievements are all due to his own abilities. In response, I did not argue. I simply replied coldly that I hadn't been in contact with Mr. Wang. It was then that Michael noticed I was organizing my office supplies. He frowned and asked, "Are you quitting?" "Yeah, staying in the company doesn't seem meaningful anymore," I replied lightly, nodding without looking at him. "It's fine if you resign, your office can go to Sarah," he said instinctively. Upon hearing this, my heart tightened instantly. I felt that regardless of whether I left or not, he might still force me out. At that moment, he tossed a check in front of me, and it was for 50,000. "After all the years you've been with me, this 50,000 is my breakup fee." I stared at the check, feeling a wave of disappointment wash over me. The promises we once made now seemed to be worth only 50,000 yuan. Slowly, I reached out and picked up the check, my fingers gripping it tightly, as if I wanted to release my anger onto the paper. Taking a deep breath, I forcefully tore the check in half. With a tearing sound, the check in my hand shattered instantly, just like my heart, which was once filled with love. "Michael, do you really think money can solve everything?" I gritted my teeth, my voice trembling. "Do you think these 5 years of our relationship are so worthless in your eyes?" I looked at the pieces in my hand, tears welling up in my eyes, but I held them back, refusing to let them fall. "I used to love you so deeply and gave you my all, yet I was treated this way. My heart is filled with regret and unwillingness. Your ruthlessness and selfishness have revealed your true nature to me. From this moment on, I have decided to completely let go of you in this relationship. I tell myself firmly that it's time to start anew and not feel sad for you anymore." After saying this, I threw the shattered pieces on the ground and turned to leave. I know I have to be strong, to step out of the shadows and seek my own happiness. However, when I got home, I found that a lot of things had been thrown out at the entrance. These were all my personal belongings. Yes, they were all discarded. The sheets also need to be thrown away. I absolutely won't touch the ones that woman used. Here are those cups, throw them all away. Inside the house, Sarah is directing the movers. She's thrown out nearly half of the things in the house. My clothes are scattered all over the floor, with footprints on them. I asked her, "Aren't you going a bit too far?" "I'm not angry," I said coolly. Only then did she turn around, her gaze revealing a hint of superiority. "I thought you wouldn't come back, so I took care of this," she said casually. Then she walked up to me in her high heels. "Michael has already broken up with you, and you should understand that I am the mistress of this house from now on. I will naturally need to deal with your belongings, right? After all, I have a cleanliness obsession and won't touch things that other women have used." Seeing her like this, I suddenly understood why Michael loved her so much. They are truly two of a kind, both are ridiculous. You can throw them away, I don't want these things either. I smiled slightly. This time I came back, I just want to retrieve one thing that is the most important to me. After saying that, I walked around her, ready to go into the house to get it, but she reached out to stop me. What are you trying to do? This is my home, and you can't just walk in. I looked at her and explained there are important things inside that I just want to take. As I walked into the living room, I saw a corner of the painting had been torn, and the repressed anger that had built up inside me instantly exploded. What gives you the right to tear it apart? This painting was one that my dad and I created together when he was alive, and it holds great significance for me. Ever since I moved in with Michael, I had placed it in the most prominent spot in the house. Every day I see it, it feels like seeing Dad. But now it's broken, just like the memories of my father shattered as well. I bent down to pick up the pieces of the painting that had fallen to the ground, but Sarah snatched it away. What's there to be sad about? She asked provocatively. Just let it go. I watched as she played with it casually, and my heart leaped to my throat. She raised an eyebrow and smiled, releasing her grip right in front of me. Bang! The painting in the frame was destroyed. Sarah feigned innocence, but a triumphant smile crept onto her lips. As I watched the scene shatter completely, my heart, which had finally begun to heal, was crushed once again. The pain of losing Michael was unbearable. In a fit of rage, I stood up and struck Sarah hard across the face. With a loud smack, her cheek instantly bore a clear imprint of my hand. At that moment, Michael happened to return, and upon seeing this, he rushed into the house and slapped me across the face. Sarah rushed into Michael's arms, crying, "Michael, she hit me, my face hurts. I accidentally broke the painting and she just slapped me. Michael, you have to help me." I glared at Michael, my chest heaving with anger, tears welling in my eyes. This painting means a lot to me, and Michael knows it very well. However, Alice, don't go too far. Just because of a painting, you're going to hit someone? Hurry up and apologize to Sarah. Seeing his reaction made me realize that he had never cared about me at all. I was so angry that I was shaking all over, my lips trembled and I couldn't say anything. I had no choice but to bend down and pick up the drawing from the ground. Before long, a shard cut my finger, and blood gushed out, sending a sharp pain through me. I shouted, "Can't you understand what people are saying? Apologize to Sarah right now." Michael still refused to back down. I ignored him and continued picking up the pieces of the picture. Just as I had picked up the last fragment and stood up, Michael once again knocked all the pieces onto the ground. "I told you to apologize to Sarah." His voice was even more piercing. I bent down once more to collect the fragments. At this moment, all I wanted was to take away the pieces and not worry about anything else. Michael was comforting Sarah, urging her to ignore the crazy woman, and expressing his intention to take her to the hospital to treat her injuries. He hoped that at the wedding, Sarah would be the most beautiful bride. Michael gently picked up Sarah and took her to the hospital. As I finished picking up the paintings and stepped out of the house, it started to rain outside. This way, no one would see my uncontrollable tears. That day, I don't remember how I got home from Michael's place, nor do I know how long it took. I only remember that as soon as I reached the door, I collapsed into my mother's arms. It was the first time I saw her shed tears of sorrow for me. My mother asked me, "My daughter, why do you have to be so foolish?" I firmly told my mom, "I'll do it myself." As soon as I said that, I fainted. In the following days, I had a high fever and felt dazed all the time. I dreamed of my dad. He didn't speak, but just held me gently like he used to when I was a child. That day, I finally recovered from the fever, and it was also the day of Michael and Sarah's wedding. Due to my situation with Michael, I have never allowed my mother to get involved, so Michael still doesn't know that the largest investor in his company, Chairman Wang, is actually my mother. Keeping my identity a secret has always been my mom's idea. 3 years ago, when Michael agreed to be my boyfriend, I excitedly told my mom. That day, she smiled and said, "Alice, before marriage, you cannot reveal my identity to him. This way, you'll be able to see his true intentions and confirm that he is not with you for your money." At that time, my naive self even argued with her. "Mom, Michael isn't that kind of person. We are together because of love." Looking back on those words now, I find them somewhat amusing. I was really too naive. As the largest investor in the company, my mom was undoubtedly one of the most important guests at Michael's wedding. When I arrived at the wedding venue, although the banquet hall was already filled with guests, Michael and Sarah were waiting at the hotel entrance because my mom had not yet arrived. Michael's wedding was quite extravagant, with hundreds of tables set up for the banquet. Many media reporters were invited to do live broadcasts, seemingly to announce their beautiful love story to the world. A large wedding photo hung on the hotel's exterior, clearly visible from a distance. However, it's a pity that this wedding is destined to be unable to take place today. Alice, what are you doing here? Are you here to cause trouble? Today is an important day for Mr. Lin, so please don't do anything out of line. Quickly go and call security. How could this woman show up at the wedding venue? It was evident that she was deliberately trying to cause trouble. She had already been dumped by Mr. Lin, and yet here she was showing up at such a time. How shameless. Soon my colleagues at the company noticed me and started walking over, seemingly wanting to push me out. After all, when one person succeeds, everyone wants to take the opportunity to rise alongside them. The company was about to take off, and their salaries and bonuses would significantly increase, with the possibility of even gaining equity in the company. Michael is clearly an important figure in the team, and everyone hopes to align themselves with him. Soon after, both the security personnel and Michael arrived. Since the media was present, Michael didn't lose his temper. Instead, he displayed a gentlemanly demeanor. However, I could sense his disdain for me in his eyes. We have already broken up. Today is my wedding day with Sarah, and I hope you won't cause any trouble. After saying this, he called in his secretary, took a check, wrote a few notes, and handed it to me. I know you're here to ask for money. Here is 200,000, which should be enough, right? I don't want to be angry today, so be smart about this and leave quickly. At that moment, Sarah said something to the media, and all the reporters on the scene turned their cameras towards me. She seemed to want everyone to see how irrational I was as an ex. I stared into the camera and slowly said, as the largest investor in the company, how could I possibly miss Mr. Lin's wedding? As soon as I said this, the venue fell silent. Before long, a burst of laughter erupted. Everyone felt that this woman couldn't handle the emotional blow and had lost her mind. She actually claimed to be the biggest investor, which is really hard to believe. Everyone knows that she has relied on Mr. Lin all these years, otherwise, she might have struggled just to make ends meet. Now she says she's the biggest investor. In the company, her performance has always been poor. If it weren't for Mr. Lin constantly supporting her, she would probably have been fired a long time ago. Everyone looked at me with a mocking expression, and even Michael smiled, gazing at me meaningfully. I know you love me very much, and you would be very miserable without me. However, you really don't need to make up such excuses. It makes you seem a bit unusual. You should take this money and go to the hospital for a checkup. If there really is a problem, you need treatment. Sarah directly took out her phone and dialed the psychiatric hospital's number. Hello, we have a person with a mental illness causing a disturbance at a wedding. Please send someone to handle it right away. The security guard then accompanied her out. I don't want to let these people ruin my mood on such a wonderful day. Just then, Sarah commanded a few security guards to come over and try to grab my arm. Suddenly, my mom's voice rang out, "Who dares to touch my daughter?" Daughter? My mom's voice was as loud as thunder, instantly drawing everyone's attention. Everyone's eyes were filled with shock and fear. Michael was so anxious that he gulped nervously, and his lips began to tremble. Chairman Wang, are you joking? He asked, looking down at my mother with evident dread on his face. My mother responded by giving him a resounding slap across the face. Michael was knocked back several steps and nearly fell to the ground. Who are you? How dare you hit my husband? Sarah, confused, saw my mom slap Michael and immediately rushed over, fuming. Just then Michael, in a panic, ran up and gave Sarah a slap as well. How rude. How could you speak to Chairman Wang like that? Go apologize to Chairman Wang right now. Michael appeared quite flustered. He understood the consequences of offending my mom. Michael, did you really abandon my daughter for this woman? My mother looked very upset, and there was a stir around us. Oh my gosh, how could this happen? Alice's mother is actually Chairman Wang. So, it turns out that the boss's wife has been in the company all along. Mr. Lin actually has no idea about this. This is disastrous. Mr. Lin has offended Chairman Wang in this manner, and the company is surely doomed. Forget about promotions, it seems that bankruptcy is just around the corner. Some employees have already rushed up to plead for Michael. After all, once the company goes bankrupt, their futures are bleak. They are all facing unemployment, and their good days are about to vanish into thin air. Sister Alice, you've been with the company for so many years, and you must have emotional ties here, but we can't let Mr. Lin's personal issues affect the company's operations. Yes, Sister Alice, why don't you take over the company? We will all support you. Everyone fell silent, not daring to say a word. Alice, regarding the company's matters, Mom hopes you will make the decision. My mother said casually. Her words seemed to give Michael hope, as he unexpectedly knelt in front of me in front of so many people and the media. Wife, he called me, and I didn't expect him to address me this way. There was a time when I wished he would softly call me wife every morning. I had asked him many times, but he never agreed. I didn't expect it to happen for the first time at a moment like this. It's really ironic. You have no right to treat me like this. It makes me feel very uncomfortable. Your wife is her. I've already made things easy for you. Slap. After he finished speaking, he raised his hand and slapped himself. Alice, I was wrong, really wrong. The person I've loved all along has always been you. Especially now, I feel like I can't live without you. At that moment, he appeared very humble. Get up. Sarah suddenly pulled him up, her face filled with anger. Michael, get up quickly. What happened to your dignity, kneeling before such a woman? The person you love in your heart is me. Even without investment, the company can continue to develop. I have already returned from abroad for you. Just as Sarah finished speaking, Michael suddenly stood up, his eyes red with emotion, and he violently grabbed Sarah's neck. Sarah's face turned red instantly. Michael shouted angrily at Sarah, "This is all because of you. You're nothing but a decoration. I've done so much for you, what was I thinking? Just leave now." Looking at Michael like this, I felt disgusted with him. My mom is right, we shouldn't let men know that their girlfriend is wealthy, or else what they pursue won't be love but money. Mom, let's go. I really can't stand this situation. I don't want to stay for even another minute. I linked my arm with my mom's and left the venue. Alice, I truly love you. Please give me another chance, okay? I can't live without you. Michael shouted from behind me. I coldly replied, then go ahead and die. 请提供您希望翻译的原文，我会帮助您进行翻译。